Welcome back to No Apologies on Becker, After Hours Oasis of Sanity. With me co-hosting tonight is Mary Grainer from Ladies of Another View here on Beck. You can check that out. What time?
At 4:30.
At 4:30 in the afternoon here on Beck. So today I am very pleased to have with us remotely Paris Dennard, the spokesman for the RNC. And Paris, good to see you again.
Hi, Paris.
Hi there.
Hello, ladies. Thanks for having me.
We are very, very pleased to talk to you tonight. First of all, I want to talk a little bit about how the RNC and particularly the GOP is changing up the way they are going after voters. I love this strategy. Talk to me a little bit about some of these new community centers that are opening.
Well, it's a great opportunity for us to engage with diverse communities all across this country. You go back to the 2020 election and President Trump's campaign in tangent with the RNC made a tremendous multi-million-dollar investment in community centers across the country, well over 15 of them in key target states that were dedicated to the Black community, APA community, as well as the Hispanic community. And we saw tremendous gains in those communities all across the country. And so the RNC funded that effort last cycle, and our chairwoman, Ronna McDaniel, decided to continue on in that engagement effort. That strategic engagement effort is something that is critically important. And so back in February, for the Black community, she made a $2 million commitment as soon as she was reelected. And as the director of Black Media Affairs, as well as being our national spokesperson, I was so proud to see that that $2 million investment was going to open up a series of Black community centers for the RNC across the country. Our first opening was held in Cleveland, Ohio, and we were there and we had Laverne Gore, who had won her primary the night before. She's a Black Republican and a wonderful woman who's doing a great job there. And so we were proud to have her fresh off her primary win there in Cleveland, Ohio for that opening. Our first community center opening was held in Little Saigon in Southern California in the district of Michelle Steele. And Michelle Steele has been a longtime Republican of Korean heritage, and she was at one point the highest ranking Republican Korean in the state, as a matter of fact, the nation and the Republican side. And so she won her congressional seat, and so we opened up our first APA opening there. After Little Saigon, we've opened up a second APA community center in Georgia in the Atlanta area. And that just happened this past weekend. And so we were so proud to have so many RNC staff and down there. It was a massive turnout there. It was overflow crowd, standing room only there. And then for the Hispanic community, we've opened up a community center in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, as well as one down in Texas, because we've seen tremendous gains in Texas, especially along the border where this community center is, with Hispanic Americans, Latino Americans who are coming over to the Republican side because they understand us to be the party of free enterprise, entrepreneurship, and a secure border, because they understand fully that it is not fair, especially those along the border, for people to cross over illegally when they have stood in line and did it the right way, the legal way. And so we are going to continue on in these engagement efforts. It's a multi-million-dollar effort that's going to pay off, because a lot of times, as you very well know, people always say that you come into a community 6 months before the election and then you leave. Well, right. Ronna McDaniel, our chairwoman, said that's not going to be the case. We're going to go in like we did in 2020, and we're going to stay there. And we're going to have a continued sustained presence all the way up to the midterm elections, because we want to show up and be present. And the only way you can ask for the vote, the only way you can ask people to support you and your candidates and your party and your platform and your positions and your policy outlooks on life is by being present. And that's exactly what we're doing.
I love that. And this is just such a great strategy and such a great idea. I have some pictures that I swiped from Twitter from Chairman McDaniel's Twitter feed. This is her in Milwaukee, and this is last Tuesday, reinforcing that commitment to growing the base here too. This is a Hispanic community center open on the south side of Milwaukee.
And let
me
stop you real quick. This is a great photo, because she has this thing called the Chairman's Award, right. And she works to acknowledge the efforts of people from the community. These aren't professional, pundits and politicians and, campaign staffers. These are just everyday Americans who've just been dedicated to expanding the party in their community. And so she gives out a chairman award, which you see around their neck, and that wonderful framed certificate to acknowledge their efforts in grassroots activities, helping to get out the vote and make a difference in their community. So I just wanted to explain to your audience exactly what they saw with the ribbon around their neck and the frame.
Thank you. I agree. You know what? Nothing better than doing the grassroots and giving them some accolades. Now, this next picture, this is the crowd at the Asian Pacific, or APA one you were talking about also, too. And this is just a phenomenal turnout at this one, too. The next picture that we will see is Tommy Hicks. And again, people getting awards.
It's so important, as you mentioned before, for us to acknowledge and recognize those people who are working so diligently in their communities, because long after the RNC staff from DC and the national team leaves, we also have regional engagement coordinators from the community that we've hired there to work every single day up until the midterm elections. And so they help us identify these people because we want to acknowledge them. We want to tell them thank you. We want to tell them that we see you, we honor you, and we appreciate the work that you're doing to help expand the party. Like President Trump expanded our party, and Chairman McDaniel has continued to make the necessary investments for us to grow and expand, because people are looking at the conditions right now in the country, especially as it has a disproportionate impact in a negative way on minority communities. And they're upset with the plight of our country because of the failed and the weak leadership of Joe Biden and all of his Democrat counterparts.
No, I absolutely agree with that,
I have a question, though. Those community centers, those are undonated funds?
Those are, they are funds that people donate to the RNC, and the RNC invests in those centers.
Right.
Is that
so
correct?
It's not taxpayer dollars.
Right.
That's
is that
very
what
true.
You would say? Yeah.
That's absolutely true. Our donors and investors believe in this message. They believe in this strategy. They believe in this engagement efforts because they have proof of concept. They saw it work in the last election cycle. And so they want us to have a sustained presence to grow our party, to win our party, and to make sure that we are identifying new candidates. And they're giving us these resources to help with our GOT efforts, because one component of the community centers is to help give people tools and education about the party, one, but two, it's to activate, it's to mobilize, it's to do GOTV, which is get out the vote, and phone banking from these community centers. So it's like a hub, a resource hub for the party and for the community.
I just think it's a brilliant idea.
Yeah,
it's so good, too.
amazing.
The bottom line, particularly with the RNC Hispanic community, too, because in South Texas, already McAllen, they won a really big election down there, too. It will allow Republicans to build relationships and establish trust with voters throughout Milwaukee and make inroads with the community through a message of growth and opportunity for all.
Amen. That is great. That's just, it's phenomenal. I'm so glad you guys are doing that.
Well, I wanted to highlight this because I don't think people realize
I had no idea
that this was going on. That's our job, Paris. When we come back, Paris, we will talk a little bit about Afghanistan.
Yes.
Stay with us. Welcome back to No Apologies on Beck. I am Lori Hins, and with me is Mary Grainer from Ladies of Another View here on Beck. And we have with us a guest remotely from Washington, D.C. right now. Are you in D.C. or are you elsewhere, Paris?
I'm here at the RNC studios in Washington, D.C.
Well, we appreciate you talking to us. Paris Dennard, spokesman for the RNC. And when we talk about Afghanistan, I want to give you a perspective that I just saw today from our junior senator, Kevin Cramer. Senator Cramer puts out a newsletter, and this is what he said. He is a member of, first of all, the Senate Armed Services Committee, and he said today in his new newsletter regarding Afghanistan, quote, "No matter the spin, this withdrawal was severely flawed and an international embarrassment. I plan to press Defense Secretary Austin on these issues when he comes before our committee later this month. The American people deserve answers and accountability," end quote. And I would have to say we deserve answers, Paris.
Well, I think your senator is spot on. And I think the issue of accountability is one of the most important things that we can do as citizens of this democracy, of this country, to try to hold the Biden-Harris administration accountable for what was a failed attempt. And your senator is right. There's no amount of spin. There's no amount of of circling back. There's no amount of talking points that can convince the everyday American who turns on their television set and saw people climbing onto a plane that's departing, that saw and learned that 13 American servicemen and women were killed in the line of duty to protect and serve. They saw the caskets come home in Dover. They saw the funeral that have been happening across the country to lay them to rest. The American people just learned this weekend. We learned that this drone strike that the administration had been saying had targeted and killed two known terrorists was untrue. They had to confirm, after being asked for several days, whether or not the report said it actually hit a civilian were true. And not only did it hit a civilian, it killed 7 children. So children and innocent civilians were killed because of this botched drone attack that didn't kill one terrorist. And to add insult to injury on top of that, you have Americans who are still stuck, stranded in Afghanistan, at being held hostage by the Taliban, which is a terrorist organization. And yet the Biden administration is acting like it's back to normal. Time to talk about climate change. Let's move on and talk about racism in America. Let's go and go to the beach. Let's go flip a coin at a football game. Let's talk about everything else but the issue at hand, which is the fact that their failed policies in Afghanistan led to this debacle, and they have got to be held accountable. Antony Blinken, the Secretary of State, was responsible for this exit, and his dereliction of duty leads to what I believe is true, what our RNC chairwoman said, that he must be fired.
It'll never happen, though. Nothing is ever done.
Nothing is ever done. I mean, this administration is out of control when it comes to failures. It's a crisis after crisis after crisis, and we see it in Afghanistan. And they try to pivot. Here's the point. They try to pivot and say, everyone wants to talk about getting out after 20 years. The majority of Americans on both sides of the aisle agreed with, President Trump agreed with the fact that it was time to get out of Afghanistan. Too many lives, blood, treasure had been lost at this battle, at this war, 20 years after 9/11. So the Biden-Harris administration tries to say, well, we needed to get out of Afghanistan. We needed to get out of Afghanistan. Nobody's debating that.
Right.
We get that. The issue is how we got out and whose policies that was, who led that effort. It wasn't President Trump. It wasn't the Republican administration. It was the Democrat-controlled, I am the expert, I'm the adult in the room, I'm the one with all the experience, Joe Biden, Kamala Harris, and his team. They failed us, and that's a problem. And we've got to hold them accountable.
It seems like they also put that deadline of 9/11. They had to get everybody out before 9/11. So it was push, and not even taking into consideration the danger that they were putting all of these people in. And there are people remaining in Afghanistan to this day who are still essentially being held hostage, Paris.
That's true. They already confirmed it. They gave a manifest list of Americans and Afghan allies over to the Taliban, so they know exactly who the people are, especially those who are remaining. We could just pray to God that nobody is beheaded or raped or murdered at the hands of the Taliban or put into human trafficking and sex slavery, which is something that they do. They still persecute women for just being a woman. They persecute Christians for just being a Christian. They're going to take the Afghanistan back to the dark ages. But this is the fault of the Biden-Harris administration. They've got to be held accountable. And I think the voters are going to remember, the Gold Star families are going to remember, the veterans are going to remember, and everyday Americans who see this are going to remember. And if they try to move on, the RNC will not. Our Republican candidates will not. And thankfully, your senator who talked about this is going to do so next week at that hearing.
Do you feel like there is a shift from the left more to the right on this issue because they just realize, okay, this obviously is so obviously a dereliction of duty, so much a debacle that why I don't want to even be associated with it?
We've been having a series of focus groups and talking to people as well. And what a lot of people are saying, even Democrats, is that they're surprised by how bad it was. And I think that so many people were just surprised that in just 8 months, things would be this bad internationally. because the Biden-Harris team thought that they talked about being the experts and having all this experience, but they don't. And so I think what we're going to see is, as more details come out, like the drone strike that killed terrorists was the original headline, and the truth is civilians and children were killed at the hands of the Biden drone attack. More and more things like that are going to come out. More and more things are going to happen that have already happened. And we're going to get the intelligence, and we're going to get the media reporting on it. And I think that's going to help to the American people understand fully, have a better, accurate picture of not the spin, but the truth and the facts about what's going on and what this administration is doing, whether it's COVID-19, the border crisis, defunding the police, the inflation, gas prices, making France, one of our strongest allies, upset so much to the point that they remove the U.S. ambassador. And then obviously with all of the things that are happening in Afghanistan, more and more is going to come out about what's already happened. And I think the American people, Democrat, Independents, and Republicans, are going to say, we need a change. Enough is enough. We need accountability. They are not up to the task of leading.
Exactly.
And I just wanted to point out, too, because Trump did say that we wanted to come out, and he had a plan. His plan was get the civilians out first. That was his plan. It's not
so
like, oh, let's grab our military, leave everything else. Let's go.
Any 5-year-old can decide, okay, what would be the best way to do this? I mean, I've literally thought a child could figure that out. It's unbelievable.
It was also conditions based. If the conditions changed, the plan would change. President Trump would have held them accountable. President Biden did not.
Correct.
I mean, it's just sad.
It is sad. And honestly, I think more and more people are realizing it too as time goes on and this debacle just continues, and they just act like nothing to see here. So
I'm to talk about climate change. No. Not while Americans are still held hostage. We're not talking climate change.
No.
We're not going to do it.
No. Paris, thank you so much for coming on the show and talking to us tonight. Very much appreciate you. We'll have you back when we come up with probably another crisis next week. I'm just,
right.
It's sad. It's very sad that there are just so many going on. But anyway, we very much appreciate you weighing in on this.